Hello, BHS. I'm Liam.
And I'm Dylan.
Today is Friday, February 4th.
Here are today's announcements.
Today we will start off with the answers to Black History trivia that was posted on Edsby School Talk.
Mikhail Jean, the first black person to serve as Governor General, was born in the country Haiti. 49 out of 83 students got this right.
Second, Rosemary Brown, in 1975, became the first black woman to run for the leadership of a federal party. 47 out of 79 students got this right.
The greatest track star in Canadian history, with gold medals in the 100-meter sprint and 4x100 relay, was Donovan Bailey. 66 out of 89 students who voted got this right. This was also the most voted poll.
Congrats to all the people who got the answers right, and we look forward to checking your search history.
Black History Month. In today's video, Shanice, an Afro-Indigenous individual, explores what it means to be an intersectional and the impact of identity.
Those are all the announcements we have for you today.
Miigwech for listening.
And have a great day, BHS.
Anim Bajra Baju, Shanice Indishnakas, and Dobo de Go Anishnabemnang, Jajak and Dodem, Anishnabe Makade Kwe, Toronto Dunjaba, meanwhile Nabising Dunjaba. So, hi, my name is Shanice Steele. I am Afro-Indigenous. My mom comes from Nipissing First Nation, which is located in North Bay, and my dad is from Trinidad, but my family has roots in Carriacou, Grenada. So, I have a mixed and diverse background, which is really awesome, and I think it gives me a great opportunity to see what it means to be a racialized person in Canada and a black person. And it's allowed me to explore my indigeneity as a black person. What does that mean to be Afro-Indigenous? And so over the years, I've actually been exploring what indigeneity means to black people and what it means to black people who are part of that diaspora. So like I said, my family comes from Carriacou, Grenada. And in Carriacou, we actually have a very deep connection to our African ancestry. And it's really dope because it's done through this thing called the Big Drum. And each family actually has their own song and dance. And it ties them to a tribe back in Africa. So I'm able to know that my family is from the Akan people of Ghana. So it's really dope in the way in which I get to explore my indigeneity and what it means to be here in Canada and on these lands, and what it means for Afro-Caribbean people to be here in a country that oftentimes doesn't necessarily celebrate us. So when I think of what it means to be Afro-Caribbean in a Canadian context, I think of Caribana, which was actually started for Canada's centennial celebration, so 100 years of Canada's history. And Caribbean people wanted to showcase how they have uplifted Canada and participated in what is Canadian culture and what is Canadian identity. And so what was really awesome was that my grandmother actually got to participate in carnival culture for the first time in her life when she moved here to Canada and was a part of that centennial celebration. And so I grew up making costumes and participating in Kitty Carnival with my grandmother. And so for me, when I think of what it means to be Black and Canadian, I think of my Trini identity. I think of my Grenadian identity. I think of the contribution that my family and my community has made to this country, especially when I think of Toronto, which is where I grew up. You can't have Toronto culture without having Caribbean people. We are what created that. And so it's this really beautiful thing of, you know, growing up in a society that, despite Canada's identity, not necessarily including me and my people, knowing that Toronto can't exist without us. And so I think that's a really beautiful thing of how Caribbean people have made their way into the framework of what is Canadian society and what is Canadian identity. And so that's been really great. And that's my views of being a part of Canada. It's, you know, it's Mary Brown in BC who was the first Black woman to run to be the leadership of a national party, the NDP. For me, it's Jean Augustine, who was the first Black woman in Parliament and who is the reason why we have Black History Month in Canada. For me, it's the Black community that we have in Toronto, the Caribbean community that we have in Montreal with the Haitian community there. For me, it's like all of my Caribbean folks that are in Vancouver, that are on the East Coast, we now have folks in the Yukon. So Caribbean people, have made themselves a part of what Canada is today. And to me, you can't have Canada without us. It doesn't exist. It doesn't move the world in the way that it does. It doesn't have the greatness that it has without Black people. We are the framework, we are the roots of every nation everywhere in the world, and especially when we think about Canada and the influx of Caribbean Black folks who came here in the 70s. When you ask yourself, what is Canadian identity? It doesn't exist without us. So yeah, that's what it means for me to be Black and Canadian. So today I'm going to be talking about Zami. So who is Zami? I really wanted to know who they were because I had heard this name floating around the Black queer community, specifically in Toronto. So Zami is actually an organization that was created by predominantly Black, Caribbean, and West Indian queer folks, gay and lesbian, in the Toronto area in 1984. And they got their name from a book written by Angela Davis that talks about queer Black identity. So for me, that is such a powerful thing because being a queer Afro-Caribbean person, when I'm looking for activism and support and a way to uplift my community, it's organizations like Zami. Unfortunately though, they've kind of disappeared and no one really knows why. They were really popular and very prominent in the late 1980s. They worked out of the 519, which is an organization for queer folks in Toronto that still exists. And they provided a space for Afro-Caribbean folks to come together and talk about what it meant to be queer and Black and Caribbean, so migrants, immigrants, and surviving in a city and a society that didn't necessarily want them there. And so while Zami doesn't necessarily exist anymore in the same way, there's lots of organizations and events that are still taking place to support Afro-Caribbean and Black queer folks living in Toronto, and even in the broader Canadian society. So in Toronto, what's really great during Pride, I'm sure you've all heard of it. It's one of the largest street festivals that happens in North America. During Pride, there's this thing called Blackorama or Blockorama that actually takes place right as you come out of Wellesley Station. So for me, that's really dope because when we think about Pride and we think about the queer community in Toronto, we think of Church and Wellesley. And so for Blockorama to have this huge Black event right when you come out of the station, for me, that's really prominent and it's really effective to show folks that, hey, we're Black and we're queer and we're here and we matter. And so that takes place at Pride throughout the whole weekend. They have small little events and concerts, and then they have one big one on the Sunday. And last year, actually, they had Curran DuBois, who's a soca artist from Trinidad, perform. And so that's huge. When we think about homophobia, oftentimes there's this idea that Black folks just don't accept queer identities or queer people. I come from a country, Trinidad, where there's actually laws against gay people from migrating there. And so oftentimes we don't necessarily feel accepted. But to have Curran DuBois, this huge soca artist that's prominent all through the Caribbean, all through the world, to come to Pride, to come to Blockorama and say, hey, I stand with you, queer community, Black queer community, was a big thing. And so you're seeing organizations like this doing events to make sure that Black, queer, and Caribbean folks are represented. Blockorama also does an event during Caribana. And so we're constantly seeing a space for us to be carved out, for us to be loud, to be proud, and to make sure that folks know that we're here. So I think it's really important that when we're talking about queer organizations in Canada, that we're focusing on things like Zami, that we're trying to bring them back, that we're making sure that there's space for queer Caribbean people to be loud and to say who they are and to say that they're here and to showcase that we are just as important and just as influential on what is Canadian society. For more information, you can click on the links below.